Here we are at Darren Doherty's kitchen table. He's going to take us through the design thinking on 140 acre property near Doherty, Victoria.
All right. Well, first up, what we're going to use is we've got a survey that was done using a drone, and this is an experimental survey for us. So there's been a photo mosaic created, and then photogrammetry has been used by the software, which has generated these 50 centimetre contour lines. So this is the first time we've used this particular type of data. Now, the other thing that we're using is we've got 4 pens here, which is pretty classical for me for a long time. Green for vegetation, red for roads and fencing. Black we use for buildings, and blue we use for water features. So the first thing that we did, just in sketching this out, was to work out some of these water flow lines. So you can see through here, we've just roughly sketched out where the flow lines are. And our typical response where we've got these flow lines is to vegetate them permanently. So we'll put a permanent forest in. So that was the first thing that we did. Second thing that we did was, let's look at how we can get water from A to B using roads. So we're going to cut into the slope and accordingly use these roads as catchment to put water into dams in particular places. There's only a couple of dams on the place at the moment, and they're not very well located. So, and they're certainly not high up in the landscape. So what we've determined also from the perspective of water is where are the highest points of capture potential. So this point right here is the highest part of the landscape, and this one here is the highest reasonable place that we can put a dam for storage. This is another point right here, which is pretty high on this ridge shape that we've got through here. And then another place that we identified was just in here, but that's actually to harvest, capture, deal with the water that we capture as part of a laneway system that we're looking at as well. So you sort of play these things out. So what we're going to do now that we've had our sort of sketch and play is transfer this information from here as a bit of a rank sketch to something with a little bit more detail before we then put this onto the computer and then work out exactly how long everything is, how long the fences are, how long the roads, and how many trees there will be, and also how big the paddock areas are, how much pipe there'll have to be bought, etc. So it's a bit of a process. I won't do it with too much precision, but this will get us going. So first up, I'm just going to draw in the approximate location of the boundary. Now, of course, you can prepare this in advance when you're developing the base map, and sometimes that'll actually be done when you get the data from the surveyor. They will have put all of this stuff on. So I'll just put up, just so that we've got our bearings, I'm going to do that now. So that's the side fence. Now, I'm not going to worry about the exact position of where that's going to be along this creek that we've got here, Jim Crow Creek. What I'll do is I'll just roughly do some lines like so that sort of take out the creek for us, because it is good, it is best practice to have these riparian systems fenced out from production. So we're just going to do that. Now there's an old water race, so there must have been an old capture point here. So what we'll end up doing is just capturing that within the riparian system. And then we'll have to double fence then, come along. Now, I don't see too much of a point in doing too much detail with your fencing, because ultimately what will happen is when you're out in the field, things will get marked out and set out, and then you'll be making decisions out in the field. And this is something a lot of people do get into trouble with when they're designing, is that they burden themselves at this stage, even on the computer, with too much detail, especially when you're working with rural properties. You know, the devil is in the detail in terms of how much time you'll take, etc. So you're better off just being fairly arbitrary with things, knowing that when you go and put things on the ground, that's where ultimate positions will be found. So you just more or less develop a bit of a sketch of how things will look. Now you can also see where we've got this race that's running through here. You've got little points like here where it's quite tight. So the reality of that is that we probably have that fence go over on the other side. So in which case I'll bring that through like here. And so you'd make a bit of a decision about it around here as to where the location of that fence would go. Mm-hmm. So we might just say, well, look, bugger it, we'll just pop that across there, and then I'll do away with that even though. Right, so now that I've put it on. All right, so then we come along here, and we're coming on the outside of, or on both sides of this system.
It's the old water channel.
Yeah, the old water channel. And then once we get to here, we'll go. So, because it's quite deep and it's not a hazard to livestock at the moment, but this property is intended to have people on it and do festivals and all sorts of stuff. So, and be a sort of a bit more of a public place. And so, having responsible subdivision is really important, I think. And that it continues along here. So I'll just come along here. I'll just stop there. And then we've got along here. Right. Just cut that off. Now we'll have a bridge at either end there. This is intended to be a sort of a festival ground at different times of the year, but for most of the year it'll just be a paddock. So given that we're going to have a driveway which sort of comes around through here, we'll need to keep those open so that we can have an entry and an exit. My next step will be to get this driveway done. I've just got to find the contour that's on. It's right here. So again, not going to be too hung up on where it ultimately ends up from my drawing perspective, because the main thing is that we have to realise is that this is going to be surveyed. So that means it'll be in probably a little bit of a different position. Anyway, we'll just get it marked out. Now, ideally on a driveway of about this length in this rainfall, this is about a 600, 650 mil rainfall area, what I would do is have about a 1 in 400 fall on this road. And we're just going to take that through here. And then what this will do is come around to about here, and then it'll go over a dam wall, and then it'll come around here and just slightly rise back up again until it gets to the main house envelope, and then it's going to just come up there. I'll just stop it there because I don't know what's going to happen there. Again, don't burden yourself with too much detail. Just put that in so it looks like a different line style. It shows that it's a road. And there we are. He's tall, isn't he?
Tall cameraman.
Right, now, the way these work is that that's going to have a shape. If here is the hill coming down like that, we're going to cut into the hill like so, and then the road will come down like that. So water will actually be caught in here. So therefore, what we'll do is we'll put along here a line to show that we're also using this access as a water catchment. Right, and then that'll just run around. Again, don't worry about doing it too finely.
It must be new veterans. It's happened here with so many years. Here it's been James.
Okay. Now, It is a public space here. Bell's house.
This is reality TV.
That's right, very much reality TV. Now we're just going to put a dam in here. Again, don't go too much on the detail. We'll have a wall going across, something like that.
And what was some of your thinking about the dam being there?
Well, because it's we need a crossing across this wet valley, and this is the main entrance in. So some of the thinking was that we've got there is some formality to this place in that this hub, if you like, here is a building hub, and so with that, there's going to be quite a few people will use this. I mean, there'll be I don't know how many uses of this road there'll be per day, but it could be 10 or 15 or even 20. And so so that means this existing road that's here which rises up here quite steeply and then falls quite reasonably down here. With that sort of traffic, it's going to find the maintenance on that road is going to be always wanting, and the water that comes off that is going to be a problem, and all of that sort of thing that we have to deal with. So having this road go around here it's going to express that permaculture principle of each element performs many functions or multiple functions, and that each element is supported by many other elements. So the elements that are being supported one is that we've got this area that needs access to. So even if we stuck with that there, we're still going to need a road over here. And then we've got this sort of missing zone here. The other element that needs support is this pond here. Now, there's a really big dam just on the other side of the road here, outside of the property. So this is going to have a fairly limited catchment. So why have a catchment drain that just runs by itself as opposed to having it combined with the road and being a more effective catchment? I'm going to have to sneeze. Excuse me. Now, the other part about this being formal is that it's a really good architectural principle with roads to not see a destination. And so, obviously, here you'll come along here, and then you'll have this, some vegetation here, so you won't see the fairground straight away. That's the first step. But then you'll go around this curve, and you'll come along here, and then there'll be vegetation all along here, and then you'll have the vegetation in here. Then you'll get to the dam, and you cross the water on the dam, and that really says, okay. And then you open up as you go across that, and there you see the ridge that has all of the building envelope on it. So there's those sorts of architectural perspectives, which in this case are also very functional. That's quite important to understand. Now, the other thing that we'll do here is put this fence line in. So I'm going to put a fence line. There's actually an old dam which is right here, and it's always a good principle to just fence dams out from livestock access. So what we do is just come along here and just put a fence line above the road here, and then that's going to come across and then just straight up to fence out that gully that's running down through here. Now, the other piece that we do there, and we'll just mark on that is a fence, just by putting these little crosses. Think in there, that'll do that. What else have we got there? Oh, another thing that we'll be doing is, where's that water hole going to be, Dan? Is that over here, where the windmill is going to go?
It's right there.
It's right there,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So in that line, we're going to have what we do is use this road or these access lines as a conduit for services, like internal services that we're putting in, not your Telstra or your telecom lines or your power or whatever else, but the sort of water lines that we're going to install ourselves. Now, I'd come to here, and then I'd come along here inside of the fence line and then run back up to here. And what I propose in this site here, based on the fact that we're going to have about 100 cattle on here, is a 250,000 litre tank, which will give us about a month to month and a half's water storage. So instead of having to fill the thing all the time, because 100 cattle are drinking 5,000 litres a day, then this thing will obviously hold water for an extended period, quite valuable. So instead of having, and one of the client suggestions apparently was to have multiple windmills, which are $10 to $16,000 each. I'd suggest just having one windmill and not have the other two. This tank is about $15,000 or $16,000. So use the money that I would otherwise spend on two windmills to have a bigger tank and have which will service a lot more of the property at once, or all of the property at once, and spend a bit of that money on building other things like dams and roads and whatnot. The roads are about $2 a metre. Earthworks such as a dam like that dam there's probably 2 days' work. It's about $4,000 or $5,000. So you can start to get the picture. Okay. Now, the other things that we'll do is just sketch out the subdivision of this zone through here while I'm at it, and I'll just fence out the sort of building envelope. The main house is going to go here, so we might actually be going through like this, and then we'll come across to here. There's yards, and there's an existing fence there which sort of fits with the shape of things. Okay, and then what else have we got? Then we're going to extend that catchment for this dam. I should have built that first. The scale of permanence always works. So the road will go something. It'll continue around here. So I'm sorry about that, Dan. I'll have to. So I'm going to fall. I think we'll fall in this direction. So we fall down towards this potential storage here, because that's going to serve us quite a bit of area here potentially for irrigation and so on. So again, we're going to try. We're going to have a bit of wetness in this valley. There's quite a ridge through here. This is all volcanic, and this is sedimentary alluvium. So we're going to come across a dam here, and then it's going to go along here and just slightly rise until we get to about here. Okay, and that's going to fall in that direction. And then in here, we're going to have okay, so that's another dam there, and that will fall in that direction. Okay, because just having that is more than enough for that. We don't need to go on both.
Yep.
And then the overflow from that can go to this.
Oh, yeah.
So that starts to really shape that up. So I buggered that fence up, but you can sort of see where we are. We're not too far off.
Yep.
Now the road will continue on and along here. And that goes over that there, and then that continues along here. Okay. Okay. Now, what else have we got? I think we were pretty done on the. Oh, we've got one more dam to build. That'll be just in. What's in this one? Is it? That's in here. Yeah. So this will be quite a reasonable storage. There's a dam in this valley, but this one doesn't have one, and we've got a bit of height. This valley here is higher than this one. There's a really nice paddock in here, so there would be which gets very, very wet. So there'd be quite a lot of value in having something here, which would just staunch some of that there. So I'm just going to draw that up, and I'd be looking at something being around about 4 to 5 megalitres here. So that'd be maybe about a $10,000, $8,000 to $10,000 structure. So I'll just get the top of the wall done. And there's the water level is going to sort of be in there. And then we'll come around with the toe of the wall is like that. And what we'll do is, so there's a road along here, so we'll capture off this quite hard stony ridge. And then this one will come around here and sort of catch the water that comes off this road, which is sort of coming down through here as well. Okay. Now these sorts of storages, I don't expect the water that's coming from the wells will ultimately dry out. However, it's really valuable to have these additional runoff storages that'll help to dry out some of these paddocks and whatnot, along with the other activities that we do. Now let's just do a bit more of the fencing subdivision. Now we've got a couple of these dry little ridges here. So obviously we've got this dam, so we're going to want to fence that out. So that gets fenced out like so. And then I'm going to extend that fence out to take in that ridge. And then we've got another spot here which is quite dry and stony, and we'll just take that out and steep. Right. Now that can be a little wildlife thing, or any of those sorts of things can be done there. We've also got this dam here, which is pretty badly eroded and not in that sort of good a condition. So I'll just fence that bit out first. It doesn't have much catchment either. Now, given that we've got an external road here, one of the things that we can do is, with this contour, is bring a catchment drain through to here. Because at the moment the catchment's really small. And now we can harvest the water that's coming down this slope. It will come to here, and then what we can do is bring that to harvest the water that comes down that road and then bring it back in. Ditto on the other side is we've probably got water coming off here. These harder slopes tend to have a higher runoff coefficient. So what we can do is bring that water and just rise that again about 1 in 300, 1 in 400. And then this dam here, which I'll just sketch in, that's the water. And that's what I can see is approximately the embankment. So that will now have a greater likelihood of filling. In doing so now, what I'll do is just fence out these features. This area above can become a paddock, and we'll subdivide it by doing this sort of thing. Now, what else have we got? Now we're looking at, with what we've got here, this is a really big paddock here. It's about 450 metres across. Now my ideal is to not have any paddocks more, in this sort of size property, not have the paddocks more than really 300 metres across for our cross fencing. It's about practical width that you'd really want to subdivide it to. So in order to do that, we've got a ridge that sort of runs up through here. So I'm going to use that ridge to split this off. This is a old historic stone wall, which the client wants to keep, and that's quite reasonable. So what I'm going to do So I'm going to just split off here, and there's a little ridge line that runs right up the centre there that the thing is on. So we might keep most of it, but we'll just cut through it somewhere there so that we can get to about here, and then swing around, and then basically come straight up the centre line of this ridge, which is always the optimum place to build a road, and put it to there. Now that makes 2 paddocks immediately. What we've got to do though is because we're going to have a water pipe which runs along this line here. So that'll run kind of like this. Now, regardless of where that might be connected to this, whatever the case, if we run an 1.5 or 2 inch pipe along here, then that can be the kind of conduit that allows us to have very, very flexible grazing. Just make that look like a pipe, and then about every 50 metres, what we'll have is a takeoff point. Okay, and all right, and then what we do with that is have. We'll just come around here with a fence that out. And then up to here, and then we'll fence this off. It might seem like it's a lot of fencing, but this style of fencing that we're using is anywhere between 50 cents to $1 a metre, so it's about a tenth of the price of a lot of conventional fencing that's out there. Kiwi Tech fencing or one of that type, or rebar with little Staffix multi-rod post insulators, that sort of thing. Okay, it's very cheap. And now we need another one which fences out this road. Okay. Now the other part of this is some of the vegetation. So we've got the nuts and bolts of the fencing layout more or less as a first stage. Another stage that I'd like to get to is where we, as I mentioned, fence out the flow lines like I've put here, and then grow indigenous vegetation along then, so we can get the wildlife corridors that we'd like to have through the whole system. But I'm just doing this as a basic layout to get us started, so that we can get the broad grazing system patterns starting to happen, because that's really important for us right now. So when I look at systems like this, you can see they're quite thin. That's in reality probably only about 40 or 50 metres wide. And you've got to sort of say, well, and the same with through here. So you've got to say, well, how viable is that for 100 cattle to be grazing in there? Well, yeah, it's okay if you're just doing it occasionally, but when you're doing it regularly, it's a bit of a pain. And typically with the responsive yield from doing management intensive planned grazing that we would do in all of these paddocks we're going to convert to, we're going to get anywhere between a 30 to 100% increase in production over a 2 to 5 year period as a result of that change of management. So that means we can start to take out pieces. Right? So even if we get 30%, we can have the same production that we've got now, but taking 30% of the landscape out, which is effectively us taking that bit out. Right? So if it's 100%, well, then we've got the same property again. So you can really start to bargain that with what you're putting into these support systems, forestry and whatnot. So what I'll do here is just do a very basic shape of to show that what we're doing here is putting in a forest system. Oops, I made a boo-boo there. I've got to put an access down here. So I'll just come off that ridge, and then I'm going to swing down off that ridge. That will give us the access to the festival ground. And to go through here.
The ridges being the
Yeah,
driest.
Yeah, the ridges being the driest and most stable. And, you know, doesn't every festival have a wet time? So, you know, you really you want to get your access right. And I think that's great for these, you know, having these festival grounds on these emergent country properties. I mean, it's not uncommon overseas, and I think we need more of it over here. It sort of builds a bit more character into these declining rural landscapes. Okay, so we'll come around, I think, to about here, and then just sneak underneath the dam. And I'll probably put another fence. Oh, I won't need to put a fence under there. But if I'm using this as a stock route, then I would need to put a fence under there. I might just do that just to illustrate the point. In which case, I'd need to come here and come here, and then come here, here. And come to here. Stop there. But again, you're gonna muck around with this based on what's going on. I'm just sketching this out, and when we're actually out in the field, all these things will be put in reality. The great thing about the systems that we're doing is just how flexible they are. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're putting in traditional fencing where, you know, there's a big heavy timber post every 10 metres, or, you know, lots of star pickets and all of that sort of thing, which is such a, you know, a lot of labour to put in. And when we're putting in small 5-8 millimetre fiberglass posts every 12 metres, which you can literally put in by hand if it's wet, or just with a little pole driver. It's so simple and light. And if you don't get it right, well, then you can just pull it out and move it. You know, there's no big drama. Which, you know, it's a big change from the stuff that everyone's been used to. Okay, now get this vegetation done. Okay, that's done there. That's done there. We're going to vegetate this whole thing too in the water race, so I'll just show that we're going to do that. It may be that you only need a fence on one side, but anyway, you can work that out when you're playing. Is that thing still flashing, showing it's on?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Good old iPhones, eh? All right, so then we've got our veg all along here, which is going to be the sort of riparian veg anyway. Now, at this rainfall, down along this creek, I think that rest would be pretty well all that's required to get vegetation establishment, if you didn't want to go to the trouble and expense of planting. All right, now, the other thing that we could do with veg is actually, apart from very edible gardens, is actually look at these as being places that we put like an avenue. So I'll just denote that by putting these dots in. That's my usual style. I don't know what the spacing is that we've got here, but that just defines these zones. And you can put oaks or ukes or eucalypts, or you can put whatever you want, poplars or plane trees, whatever suits you to plant along these. Now that really defines these systems, and of course beautifies them, I think. And you can do them in copses. You can do alternating tall trees and low trees. There's so many choices for you there, etc. Of course, along the avenue here, you can do one side and not the other. Best thing to do is to give yourself the license to be a designer and just sketch some of these things out. And, you know, when you're out in the paddock, get some sticks of bamboo or something, put them in and just see what spacing you want. Imagine the full size of the trees. Go to the parks and have a look at what they've got there and sketch them out. These sorts of zones here, I'm envisaging that they might fill up with veg. Zone like that, I'd probably look at that as being a bit of a paddock actually. So I think I'll.
There was some talk about possibly some fruit trees adjoining the.
Oh, okay.
The envelope and part of that area,
Therefore you would, because then you might, for grass maintenance, you might use some sheep in there or something.
Yeah,
so therefore it would need a fence, and we'll do that. Yep. And so if that was a system like that, then you might, given that's quite a wet valley through there, what we might do is put sort of a key-lined sort of shape through there like that, with the rows of trees sort of coming through, something like that. So have quite a nice farm orchard, something like that. Anyway, that's sort of, again, haven't got the lines exactly right, but that's good enough for where we are now. Now we've got this system up here, which is a sort of a dry ridge with quite a bit of a relief coming up and then down, and then we've got this big sort of plateau, which, as we mentioned, is volcanic. I'll probably ideally fence that off in time, and so I might mark that out now to just go with a fence from here through to here. That seems the natural boundary for it. Now that's going to change the land use here. What I think for here is that we do something like a wide space tree crop system here, about 12 or so metres between individual trees in rows. And there might be carobs and mulberries and oaks and all of those sorts of things. And accordingly would create quite a good and stable land use, but at the same time beautify that hill with some really outstanding looking stems. You might want to keep the centre open so that you can have a little seating area and all of that. This is the sort of flexibility that we can generate. Now, with all of these zones, my vision for what are now the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paddocks is that we would have this as sort of a savanna system, because they're grazing systems, which means that you want to have, between 7 to 15 trees per hectare. I'll just sketch some of that out now. I've come back from Byron Bay with a bit of a head cold. I think I got it off the plane. There was lots of people sniffing on the plane. Anyway. So what I'll do here is just, I've got a bit of a line through here. I'm trying to always look at a bit of a keyline shape. I think what I'll do is I'll kind of come, quite broadly, have a fall sort of coming across like so. Because we've got we've got these lines that are relatively contiguous through here. So we might actually make two different systems go. One that sort of comes through here like that. So that means we've got a line that's sort of going like that on that part, and then we'll treat that separately. So therefore, these trees will sort of, again, I don't know the exact spacings here, it's not important at this stage. And we'll just alternate them out. Point is now we've got a fall in that sort of direction. And then we'll just neatly offset them. I mean, it's not super important. It does make it easier if you want a fence, as you can see from this diagram we drew before. There's one option for doing savanna fencing is that you can use these as sort of alleys, right, that you can fence off and then run your livestock in between the two alleys.
Yep.
And if they're electric fencing, then you can just do an offset and then put a fence around each individual tree. That's one option. The other option, which is more expensive, is to get pallets or barrels, or make a timber structure, little bollards, and post and rail around each one, whatever's feasible. We've seen people do lots of wild, wonderful things all around the place to get paddock trees. There's so much effort in removing the savannas that so many of these landscapes had very well established, and now, now it's a lot of work to get them back in with all of the gardening that we've got to do. All right, now I'll do the same coming through here, just to get the nuts and bolts of the shape, and then do the offset. I've lost my shape now. Oh, yeah, there. Ding, ding, ding. Something like that. Now, you can sort of extend that all the way through, like through here, coming on a sort of a line like this. And then back down. And then up again, and down again, and then up again. And then, right, I'll just do it quickly now so that we can cut to the chase. You get the picture. And you could just put it randomly if you wanted to. It's just that fencing decision that you want to make. So if you do want to have a fencing system, or want to stick to more of a sort of a keyline sort of pattern, then having that equidistance and the good flow through there certainly is a good thing. Otherwise, like I'll do in this paddock, you might just take it like that, and then back down there, and just fill the space with an offset. See how we're trying to offset ultimately. The other opportunity, of course, is to put bands in, and you might, where you've got like more strip forests, easier to fence in a lot of ways, but then you end up with a belt of trees, and then no paddock shelter. Which is
create wind tunnels and stuff.
Yeah, well, it is the potential, but it's also about trying to create a landscape which sort of looks good. It's not only functional, but it also looks good, and one that really mimics nature. And what a landscape that mimics nature is a savanna, and that's where a lot of the livestock that we work with have come from savanna landscapes. So, so we'll just do this last couple of paddocks here. We've got this old mine area here. Now that might be a site where you come and fence out, because I don't know what the extraction is there. It might have been that they did some, they might have done some cyanide treatment or mercury treatment or any of that sort of thing. So let's just forest that in a closed forest. Right, that deals with that. And then we'll just savanna the rest.
Yep.
All right, nearly there.
Not bad. A skeleton design for 140 acres in 40 minutes.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean,
could be there for a long time.
Exactly. Well, obviously, what we're trying to illustrate here is that, I've obviously done the odd design or two, so I can kind of cut to the chase a bit, and you can sort of, it's like an illustrator. I mean, you look at it now, the way an illustrator just pulls a drawing together. When people who aren't illustrators, they take a long time to sort of pull it together. Well, that's just the experience that you get.
Yeah.
But at the very least, having shown people through this process, they can sort of see some of the thinking and how you sort of, build it all up together.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of done. All right. And that should be about it. Now, last thing I'll do is I'll just give these all names, because it's good to sort of annotate everything so that you have points of clarity when you're talking about things. So we'll call this one P1, so paddock 1, P2, P3, oops. That's the building envelope, so I won't worry about that one. P4, P5, and then once you formalise this on P6, oops, P6, geez, I'm going well here, aren't I? P7, so paddock 7, paddock 8. So once you formalise these, then what you would do is, work out the areas of each one of these, and then that can help you build your grazing plan numbers, because you'll assign paddock rankings and all of that. And, the other thing that you can do is start to, you might call that one F1, F2, so on, and just go through all of that.
Yep.
If that's a building envelope, dam 1, dam 2, even name your avenues and your water features and whatnot, your water systems, and it's all dealt with, and that's about it. Did you have any questions on that, Dan? I think you're pretty clear.
I think that's really good. With putting trees in the paddock area, you do get more of a concentration of manure around the trees. But
no, you do. Well, you do if you practice set stocking, and that's always been an issue with people. Is that and trees have really suffered as a result.
Yep.
Where we've had inherited natural landscapes, particularly here in Australia, where there are remnant eucalypts in paddocks, and some of those eucs are between 200 and 500 years old. What people have really done a bad service is, if you've got that tree, well, in nature it'd sort of look like this. And then in nature, it would have had all of these falling branches, and I've seen a few instances where remnants have got sort of all these shrubs and native grasses and all of that sort of thing. And then you come across, and then you get out into your paddock, and you've got all your grasses, and then you come to your next tree, of a further distant with more of its branches and whatnot. Now, what we've come along and done, in order to create a bit more order, and also with the way that stock have been managed in a pre-electric fence or pre-planned grazing set of circumstances, is, well, one, we've come in and removed all of the branches underneath, and what that's done is that's stopped the fungal cycle that's occurring underneath there, because we pile that up into little piles and burn it. And so, if you look at that, that's actually a forest system. And each what we've got here is we've got falling branches coming down, we've got fungi doing its work, converting it into soil, and then so we've got that sort of cycle going on with the tree. Take that away, and the forest is no longer. You've just got a tree, and so. As been said, a forest requires a fallen forest to survive, and all of its friends. So you've got that. Now, the other thing that happens, even if you've got some shrubs left, is you've got your cattle or sheep come and sit under that, because they're set stocked and they're in one paddock for so long. Well, our regime is to split these paddocks up on a daily or a couple of day basis, and use portable watering systems so that give us that flexibility, and then we don't have the camping. And if there is camping, it's only for a day, not for weeks on end or whatever it is. And away we go. But it's going to take some time before these trees sort of attain that size, but that's part of the treatment. Yeah,
great. One other comment was how we didn't talk about fire design, but just the way it's fallen out, particularly the building envelope where the people are going to likely
fire design is best achieved in a few ways. One is that we do have a tank up high. We can certainly vegetate that. We can certainly build it into the hill so it's earth sheltered. It'll be a steel or concrete tank, so that makes it a bit better than a plastic. All of your water lines are buried. We're going to have a can't quite see what the difference is, but we're probably going to have in the order of 5 to 10 metres of fall from the tank to the house envelope, the building envelope, which is obviously going to generate a reasonable amount of pressure by gravity. The other thing that we'll do that'll make a big difference is having this orchard and having all of the building envelope mainly vegetated with exotics or low flammability natives will certainly enhance that. So not filling the space up with ukes.
Yep.
The main fire is coming through this way.
Yep.
So filling that all up with, sappy figs and mulberries and fruit trees and just even landscape trees such as, Chinese elms and all of those sorts of things, which will grow quite well here, will only serve to help that. So you build your water system in, which means you've got sprinklers running on gravity, not on petrol or electricity, and the rest of it's landscape. The other thing is about the whole landscape, the way it's managed, is it's managed to increase carbon. And when we increase the amount of carbon in the soil, that'll only mean that the grasses will stay greener over a longer period. But the other part of that is that when you're building your grazing plan, you can say, all right, well, I've got specific risks at specific times of year. Most of the summer grazing is actually going to be down on these bottom areas where there's a natural tendency for more moisture to be held in the soil. And these ridge areas, well, we will have grazed those out over winter and spring because they tend to dry off earlier and they don't recover. So, if we come through here in November, December, the grass will be well and truly eaten down. It won't be standing dry foliage. So that will further reduce in the fire sector the amount of fuel load that we'll have and reduce the burden. All of these trees that I'm suggesting we put in here, most of them will be deciduous or non-flammable, and it'll be fine.
Great.
That'll help as well.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that. I guess we get
No
to
worries.
see what the clients make of
What
us.
they think. That's always the next step. It's good to have them here when you're doing it, but this is the best we can do at this stage.
Great.
Thanks, mate.
All right. Thank you.